Today you are going to start lesson 4.5, write and solve equations with rational numbers. So before we begin, I just want to go back to kind of review what is a rational number. So right here I have a over b. We have two integers here, a and b does not equal 0. So a rational number can be a whole number, it can be a fraction. Okay, a over b, that's set up like a fraction. It can also be a decimal number. So this is going back to semester 1 when we learned about rational numbers. So if you look here, I have the whole number 5. In fraction form, 5 can be written as 5 over 1. Here I have the mixed number, -1 and 2/5. That can be written in fraction form as -7/5. And over here, I have a decimal number, 25 hundredths. That can be written as 1/4. Okay, so whole numbers, mixed numbers, and decimal numbers can all be written as fraction form, a over b. Okay, so our focus for this lesson is to talk about writing and solving equations that include decimals, that include fractions, and that include mixed numbers. So we're going to focus on each one of those. So our first focus is going to be on decimals, okay? So solving equations with decimals. Just like when we learned about solving equations, an addition and subtraction equation and a multiplication and division equation, it is the same 3 steps that we want to focus on. We want to isolate our variable, get our variable all by itself. We want to use the inverse operations. Okay, that means opposite. So if it's addition, you want to use subtraction. If it's, I'll put it up here, addition, you want to use subtraction. If it is multiplication, you want to use division. Those are the inverse operations. And then what you do to one side of the equation, you must do to the other side. Okay, so let's look at this first example here. And remember, our focus here is decimals. In this example, I have r minus 1 8/10 equals 7 4/10. And over here in this little bubble, I just put a reminder. This is going back to one of the first lessons that we've done this year, which is adding and subtracting decimals. Okay, so when we add and subtract, we're going to line up the decimal. So let's look here. The first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to write my equal track. Okay, that separates both sides of my equation, so it's easier for me to see. The next thing I need to do is I need to circle my variable. Now, why do I want to do this? I'm going to circle this because it helps me remember that, oh, this is what I need to get all by itself. I have to get r all alone on the left side. Okay? And then I look here and I see that this is subtraction. So I have to remember that I have to use inverse operations. So what is the opposite of subtraction? Well, I know that that is addition. So I'm going to be adding here. So I'm going to add 1 8/10 to this side. Now remember, this actually, I'm looking at this as a negative 1 8/10. If I add 1 8/10 to negative 1 8/10, that's going to bring me to 0. That is why this cancels out. Okay, so now when I'm looking at this, I have r all by itself on this side. This is all gone. So I'm going to simply put r. Okay, so there's my variable. It's all by itself. Now remember, the third part of this is I have to do whatever I do to one side. Okay, so I added 1 8/10 on this side. So I have to do the same thing to the other side. So I added 1 8/10. I'm going to add 1 8/10 to this side. Now remember, when I'm adding and subtracting decimals, I must line up the decimal. So here I lined up the decimal. That means my decimal point is going to come straight down. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and let's add this. 8 and 4. What is 8 plus 4? 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And I carry my 1. And now I have 7 plus 1 is 8, plus the 1 I carried over is 9. So my answer, or my solution rather, is R equals 9 and 2 tenths. Okay. And now if this were addition, all I would do is I would do the inverse operation. I would do subtraction. So I'd subtract 1 and 8 tenths instead. Okay. All right, let's look at another example. However, this is a division problem. I'm still focusing on decimals. Okay. So if you look, I'm just dealing with decimals here. So I start by making my equal track. Let me zoom in a little bit. There we go. I start by making my equal track. I have Z divided by 5 tenths equals 36 hundredths. And I have to figure out what is Z. So after I do my equal track, I'm going to circle my variable because I know I want to get Z alone by itself. So here I'm dividing. Remember, I have to do the inverse operation. So what is the opposite or the inverse of division? Well, that's multiplication. It undoes division. So I'm going to multiply by 0.5 or 5 tenths. And that's going to cancel out. Okay? And now I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. I'm going to multiply by 5 tenths. And if you look here, I'm lining up this place right here. Okay? And I can actually put the 0. Okay. So, put multiplication over here. If you look over here at my little hint, I put multiplying decimals. So
our dividends.
You want to make sure that you're going to multiply the number as if it is a whole number. Okay, so multiply as if it's a whole number. So I would pretend that this is 36 times 5. So I'm actually just going to rewrite that down here. 36 times 5. Okay, so let's go ahead and multiply. What's 6 times 5? I know that is 30, carry the 3. And what's 5 times 3? That's 15 plus 3, 15, 16, 17, 18. So if I did 36 times 5, I get 180. But I have to remember that this is not 36 times 5. It's actually 36 hundredths times 5 tenths. So what do I have to do to figure out where my decimal place goes? My decimal point, sorry. I have to count the number of places to the right of the decimal. D-E-C-I, decimal. Okay, so let's start up here in my original equation. I have 1, 2, 3 places to the right of my decimal points. So that means I'm going to move my decimal point from the right-hand side 3 places to the left. 1, 2, 3. So I get 0.180. Okay, so Z, which is all alone, Z equals 0.180 or 18 hundredths or 180 thousandths. So your task is going to be to focus on adding and subtracting decimals. Okay, make sure you do the opposite, the inverse operation of what is given, and multiplying and dividing decimals. Make sure you do the opposite of what is given. And if you need help, please ask for it.